What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'll be taking a look at the top 8 deck lists from Collinsville Regionals, which was Black and White Sword and Shield expanded format. We do have another expanded regional coming up, Charlotte Regionals, later this month, so definitely some things to look at here in preparation for that. We had a lot of nutty decks in the top 8 and just in this tournament in general, and we'll start taking a look at that after I shout out PotownStore.com, my sponsor and the best place to get PTCGO codes. You can use code Celio for 5% off over there, and also shout out to FlipsideGaming.com where I write free articles, and you can use code Celio, all caps, for 10% off on your next order, $10 or more. So we'll start off with 8th place, which was Zachary Cooper with Dollstall. So we've seen something like this before in the top 8 of Dallas Regionals, and stall decks have been around for a while. I am actually not going to start with the Pokemon here. We're going to start with the dolls. So there are 4 Lily's Pokedoll and 4 Robo Substitute in this deck. Just had to click on that to get them showing up over here. So yeah, we've got 4 Lily's Pokedoll and 4 Robo Substitute. Also, real quick, obviously, if you haven't been able to tell, we're on LimitlessTCG.com looking at these lists. So shout out to LimitlessTCG.com. So 4 Lily's Pokedoll, 4 Robo Substitute. Being able to use these trainer Pokemon, they don't reward a prize card when they're knocked out. It's very degenerate to be able to reuse these over and over until your opponent decks out, or if you're in game 2 and you won game 1 until time runs out. You can just do this forever until your opponent is out of cards to play with. And that's thanks to a lot of our support Pokemon. So the Lily's Pokedoll and Robo Sub kind of work the same way, except Lily's Pokedoll, if it's your active, you can put it at the bottom of your deck, and then if Robo Substitute is in play, regardless of where it is, you can just discard it from play if you'd like. But neither of them, your opponent can take prize cards for knocking out either of them. So for our Pokemon, there are quite a ton of 1-ups here. We've got 2 Sableye with the Junk Hunt, put 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand, and Lily's Pokedoll and Robo Substitute are item cards. Would you look at that? So Junk Hunt, if you have a Life Dew on your Sableye, it's just disgusting. So you can Life Dew Sableye and then Junk Hunt for a Life Dew and a sub or a doll, and then promote a doll, then Junk Hunt with a Life Dew again. And if your opponent doesn't have Faba, they're not going to be able to get rid of your Life Dew, and you can just keep using it. Sorry, I said that out of order. So you'd Life Dew your Sableye and get 2 dolls, and then put out the dolls, and then you'd have to Junk Hunt back a Life Dew. So basically you can use like 11 or 12 Sableyes if half of them are Life Dewed. Oh, he's also using Lana's Fishing Rod. So right, so you don't, if since you have Lana's Fishing Rod, sorry I missed that, you can just Junk Hunt the Lana's Fishing Rod and a doll, and then after the Sableye with Life Dew gets knocked out, you can Lana Fishing Rod the Sableye and the doll back. Not the doll, Sableye and the Life Dew back, and then search those out or draw into them. And so you can use things like Steven's Resolve or Teammates. So if you're Steven's Resolving, it's fine because you're sending a doll up anyway, so you don't mind taking a turn to not do anything because you don't have anything to do. And you can just get your Life Dew Sableye with that. And start the whole thing over again. So very degenerate with that. Regirock is a good card in stall decks since it cannot be Guzma'd. It has the Omega Barrier whenever your opponent plays a trainer card, excluding Pokemon tools and stadium cards. Prevent all effects of that card done to this Pokemon. So it can't be Guzma'd, it can't be Catchered. So you can just have a bunch of dolls and a Regirock on your board, and they can't Guzma anything. They can only Guzma dolls. They can't Guzma the Regirock. And you also use this with the Hoopa strat. You can just go lone Hoopa in the active and then a Regirock on the bench. So if they have something in their deck that's able to knock out Hoopa, you don't get benched out and lose, but they also can't Guzma around the Hoopa because all you have on the bench is Regirock. Of course, there's Snorlax for the block. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent's active Pokemon can't retreat. Again, you can just have Snorlax or Regirock. They can't Guzma it. They're stuck active, can't retreat. This is used on things like Denes or Sudowoodos that can't attack. And if your opponent can't use something like an AZ to pick it up, it's just stuck there, and then you mill them out of the game that way. Funnelby is good because it can discard your opponent's deck, and it can also, excuse me, it can also rototiller to shuffle a card from your discard pile into your deck. So it can mill your opponent, or it can help you get back resources. And it has the Omega Barrage. This Pokemon can attack twice a turn. So you can do one Burrow, one Rototiller, or two of each, or two of one of them. Giraffary Get Lost is good for getting rid of things from your opponent's discard pile that you don't want them to have access to later on. Maybe like a Faba, so you can use your life dues. Maybe a Guzma, and then you don't even have to worry about locking them in a specific way. You just got rid of their Guzma already. The Hoopa can't be hit by GX or EX, so that's self-explanatory. Sudowoodo Watch and Learn, since there's counter energy in here, Sudowoodo Watch and Learn can get rid of a big threat if you need to. You usually won't be taking all 6 prizes, but just clearing one threat off the board is good. And then also Munchlax, like I said, you'll be leaving a doll active and not attacking anyway a lot of the time. So Snack Search, you can flip a coin of heads, put a card from your discard pile on top of your deck, and then your turn ends. You don't mind that your turn ends because you have the doll active. And there's a bunch of there's a lot of degenerate stuff going on with this deck. So like I said, the life do, you'll have the Lana's Fishing Rod, Team Flare Grunt to remove energy, Team Skull Grunt to discard the energy from their hand, Team Rocket's Handiwork to mill their deck, Plumeria to discard energy from their hand, from their Pokemon, Faba to Lost Zone things. We've got Counter Catcher to lock things into the active, Gladion in case we prize something important. There are a lot of 1-of cards, so this deck is very difficult to play. There's a lot that goes into building a deck like this, and also a lot that goes into playing a deck like this. Next, we've got Andrew Mahone's Snorlax deck, with just a handful of 1-off Pokemon in here. So I know Andrew's already done deck profiles for this on Tricky Gym, so for a better look at that, I would suggest checking that out. But basically, you want a G-Max Fall, 60 plus 30 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon. So if you have Skyfield, you're doing 300 damage with G-Max Fall for just a triple colorless energy, 1 attachment. That's very good. The problem is you're just playing 4 triple acceleration energy, and you have an exploitable weakness, which is fighting. So like Sudowoodo can one-shot you, or you can just get Faba'd out of the game, or Chaos Wheeled out of the game. He actually didn't even play a Ranger, so like if someone used Chaos Wheel, he just could not attack anymore. So Chinchino's Make Do for drawing, Shaman EX for drawing, Dedenne for drawing. So a ton of draw power here because you just want to special charge your triple energies back and try to hit them every time. And then, like I said, a lot of text. So Alolan Muck to shut off things like Roadblock Sudowoodo. Altaria, each of your colorless Pokemon has no weakness. This is really good for, like I mentioned, against a Sudowoodo. Galarian Rapidash, your Pokemon can't have special conditions. So this is good against Dead End GX. Naganadel GX with the Stinger, so you can, if you're playing against a tag team deck, you can just Stinger GX and then take 1 knockout. And then, of course, Sudowoodo for mirror matches or anything else that wants a big bench. This hurts Trevenant a bit, hurts Turbo Dark a bit, because they like to have larger benches. And then nothing else too special here. I would like to point out the Winona, since it's a supporter card not a lot of people know about. Maybe more people know now since Chinchino and Snorlax are in expanded. But search your deck for up to 3 colorless Pokemon and put them into your hand. Very good for this deck, since Chinchino and Snorlax and Shaman are all colorless Pokemon, and Ditto. So Shaman, Chinchino, Snorlax though being colorless, and Winona being a card is just really busted. Other than that, nothing too important to point out. I think it's a strong attacking deck, but attacking decks that all they do is knock you out and take prizes just aren't what's the thing in Expanded. Like, Expanded thrives off of degenerate cards and disrupting your opponent and removing energy and stopping them from doing things, locking abilities. And Snorlax, I mean, I guess it has a Alolan Muck, but that's just a tech. It has Sudowoodo, but that's just a tech. Snorlax, at the end of the day, just try to take big knockouts, take all 6 prizes, and as you can see, the other decks in top 8 are trying to do very different things from that. So we'll go on to 6th place, Grant Hayes, making top 8 at 2 expanded regionals back-to-back with the same deck, with Rowlegg, Vileplume, and still sticking to the Sceptile line, which not many people seem to like anymore. He might have been the only person playing the Sceptile line. So Rowleggs or Egg Row, whatever you want to call it, if you don't know about it already, Super Growth allows you to search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your grass Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. And if that Pokemon is now a stage 1, search your deck for a stage 2 that evolves from it. So you can just go right up to either Disgusting Pollen Vileplume or Irritating Pollen Vileplume. You have to decide if you want to be Disgusting or Irritating. And you can do that on your first turn attacking. So Disgusting Pollen auto beats some decks because as long as his Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent's basic Pokemon can't attack. So if they don't have an evolution attacker, an evolved Pokemon, or something like Stealthy Hood that allows them to attack while this is active, they just lose because they can't attack. So Vileplume Disgusting Pollen is your strategy against a lot of decks, and then against other decks you just put up an Irritating Pollen so nobody can play item cards, and you just swing with 150 with your Calming Hurricane, and that gets you there. Of course, there is Super Boost energy in this deck since they are playing the Sceptile GX, so you can Leaf Cyclone move Grass Energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon, so you can Super Boost from this Sceptile to a bench Sceptile, and then AZ that Sceptile, then just repeat it. So that's pretty cool. The Sceptile is all right. One of the main selling points is it has Sunshine Grace, so it allows you to actually like search for your Pokemon. You're not just sitting there attaching and passing. And then the trainer lineup is definitely unique for the Sceptile lists. It's always different than the non-Sceptile lists. 2 Faba, whereas the other lists, I believe, play 4 Faba, but we will be taking a look at that in a second. Nothing really to note about the trainers aside from the split of 3 Lab, 1 Plant, 1 Life Forest. Plant is not as good as it was previous to Sword and Shield because Zoroark GX is seeing much less play now, and Silent Lab is very good because Zacian V is a basic Pokemon and Silent Lab turns it off, so 3 Silent Lab, 1 Power Plant, 1 Life Forest seems about right. Seems like it makes sense. So on to the 5th place, Will Jenkins with the Trevenant, the most broken deck in Pokemon history. Not really, but it's pretty good. A lot of people are upset about it. Some people think it's fine. Well, I guess we'll just have to see what happens. But this deck has a lot of good things about it, and namely, your opponent gets 1 card at the start of their turn to play with, and that's what's so good about this. So, the main thing you want to do with this deck is you pop a Milotic, you knock it out, put your opponent ahead on prize cards, and attach 3 energy to your Trevenant. And then you Ace Trainer them, putting them down to a 3-card hand. Then you use Night Watch, swing 150, not a bad beat stick, and choose 2 random cards from their hand, shuffle them into their deck. So they start their turn with 1 card from their Ace Trainer and then their top deck. So 2 cards at the start of their turn. You just hit them for 150. If they can't do anything about it, you're going to just take those 2 cards from their hand, then they'll start out next turn with a 1-card hand. So it's a very degenerate game plan while it's also an attacking deck. So the games that you win sometimes are very quick because you just say Night Watch until you knock out all of their Pokemon and they can't really do anything. So it's definitely different from the other unliked decks where they stall out the game and they take a long time. Trevenant Dusknoir can actually finish games fairly quickly. There's also the Gengar Mimikyu in here, which is another pretty gross card. Horror House, your opponent can't play any cards from their hand during their next turn, and then Poltergeist does 50 for every trainer in your opponent's hand, so you can Horror House them, they just pass, and then you Poltergeist whatever's active, blow it up. So that's very good as well. This deck has 4 Shaman EX in it, which people have been saying maybe Shaman's the problem card, and I don't completely disagree with that, because without setup, just play down a Sky Field and say set up as many times as you can, this deck wouldn't be able to consistently draw the cards it needs to set up like it does. So for Shaman EX in this deck, I wouldn't go lower than 4 because I think that's correct. You want to just use Shaman as much as possible. And this list also played an 0-1 line of Garbodor with the Ditto, so you can shut off not only basic abilities with Muck, but also all abilities with Garbotoxin, which is interesting. And like I said, it plays 4 Skyfield because you just want to get your Shamans, just say set up 4 times if you can on turn 2, pop your Milotic, and off to the races with Night Watch. Other than that, really consistent with the 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Quick Ball, 4 Battle Compressor, 4 Versus Seeker, 4 Float Stone, so you can switch in and out as you need. The 2 Ace Trainer, so if one's prized, your game plan isn't over. The 4 Shaman. There's also a Dedenne and a Tapu Lele, so a lot of support Pokemon, a lot of items to search. 2 of your main supporter here. And then also 2 Weakness Policy, which really helps against Dark because Trevenant and Gengar are both weak against Dark. So that's actually the 5th and 1st place list. Will Jenkins and Justin Bakari both played the same 60. Justin won the tournament. Will lost to him in top 8 and got top 8, 5th place. Next, we've got John Mostow. Mostow. One of those have to be right. With Hoopa Walls. So another stall deck, but actually fairly different than Zach Cooper's stall deck. This one does have the 4 Lilies Polka Doll in it, but it does not have the Robo substitutes. I'm not sure why this one isn't showing the cards up here. Maybe if I refresh it, it'll work. Oh, there we go. So yeah, it has the 4 Lilies Polka Dolls, but not the 4 Robo substitutes. So that's the first difference. This one has Pyroar in it. So it actually has an evolution Pokemon, whereas the other stall list in top 8 did not have any evolutions. Pyroar prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon, so this can't be hit by a lot of popular Pokemon. Zoroark Ninja Tag Teams, Ace and V, Arceus Dialga Palkia. What else is popular and expanded? Other basic attackers. Let's see real quick. Trevenant, Dusknoir, Gengar, Eggrowl, Blacephalon is up here. Tina Chomp, Mewtwo, and Mew. Okay, you get the gist. There's a lot of good basic Pokemon. But expanded is usually not as big basic oriented, or at least right now I don't think it's as big basic oriented as standard is, because even the basic decks do have evolution Pokemon to attack with. But anyway, Pyroar, Intimidating Mane. If you do come up across a deck like Zacian ADP that only has basic Pokemon, you can just win the game with Intimidating Mane. And then some Pokemon in here that were not in the other stall list. There's a Mimikyu with Impersonation. This allows you to use an extra supporter card for turn, which is really good since Lieutenant Surge is not expanded anymore. There's the Durant with Chip Off. It's like the Make 'em Pay Persian, but Chip Off, discard cards from your opponent's hand at random until he or she has 4 cards in his or her hand. So for just 1 colorless energy on a basic Pokemon, you can empty your opponent's hand, basically. Has the Bunnelby, has the Munchlax. Lugia GX for the Lost Purge GX. Puts your opponent's active Pokemon and all cards attached to it in the Lost Zone. So you do this for a DCE and a counter gain, I presume. Yeah, they're running counter gain. So DCE counter gain to just get a threat off the board. And then Moltres Zapdos Articuno is a big 300 HP body that you can put out there. Lightning Pikarom isn't too popular, so lightning weakness isn't that relevant. So you have a nice 300 HP body. And of course you have AZ as well. And you can't actually use the attack. No, you can't actually use any of the attacks. You could Sky Legend to shuffle this Pokemon into your deck, but you can't use the other parts of it. So yeah, Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno, big body. You can attack with Pyroar, so once you wall them out, since you have Fire Energy, Counter Energy, DCE, you can actually wall them out and then just take prizes and just take knockouts until your opponent scoops or you win the game. And the same thing with Hoopa, since there's 2 Counter Energies and a DCE or Cycle Energy, Fire Energy, you can attack with Hoopa, but only while you're behind because you need the Counter Energy to work, so that's a little different. As for trainer differences, you have the Ninja Boy, so you get Ninja Boy into a Litleo and then immediately evolve out of nowhere. Double Faba, 2 Gladian. The other stall list had just the 1 Gladian. This one has a Belelba Bryson Man to mill your opponent, so you can go like Belelba versus Seeker, then Impersonation and get 2 Belelbas off in 1 turn. For that matter, you can use any supporter other than Steven's Resolve twice in 1 turn, and you can even go like Faba and then discard a Steven's Resolve as your Impersonation supporter. So that's something really cool to keep in mind as well. And Counter Catcher to lock something up if you need to, or get rid of a threat, like I said with Lugia GX. Trick Shovel for milling. Interesting that this this list does not play Resource Management or Junk Hunt. And like it says, the title is Hoopa Wall, so it is a bit of a different deck. It wants to wall out the opponent either with the Hoopa or with the Pyroar or with the Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno, and then just AZ it versus Seeker, AZ it, make them waste their resources trying to knock this out. But Pyroar and Hoopa can actually wall a lot of things on their own, and you also have the Lily's Polka Doll to wall as well, versus special energy decks like Night March or Ultra Necrozma. You can just Faba them 4 times and you win like that. But of course, there is the Bunnelby to Rototiller resources back and the Munchlax to get things back, but I do think it's interesting that Sableye or Oranguru didn't make the cut for this deck, since I do think they're such staple stall and control and mill cards. But this list did get top 4, so I guess he got by just fine with just the Munchlax and the Bunnelby. Next, we've got another Trevenant Dusknoir. Let's see how many differences there are. This one's in 3rd place by Lukas Benson. This one's only playing 1 Gengar Mimikyu, but still has the 4 Shaman and a Dedenne. Has a similar trainer lineup for Quick Ball, for Ultra Ball, for Battle Compressor. Has the 4 Skyfield, only 1 weakness policy. This one also plays a Marnie. I don't believe Justin and Wills played a Marnie. No, it did not. It played a Malolana, though. And I don't think this one plays a Malolana. It does play a Malolana. Okay. But yeah, this one is a little bit lighter on the Pokemon. It only has 1 Gengar Mimikyu. It doesn't have Garbotoxin. It doesn't have Tapu Lele GX, so definitely some differences, but for the most part, it's the same deck. It's going to play almost the same exact way. And then Colton Day with Eggrowl, and I really liked this list because it had Exeggutor with Blockade in it. So this one, this was an attacker that was fairly popular in Zoroark decks and Expanded when Zoro Eggs was really good. So Blockade for a colorless energy, it does 10 damage, and then your opponent can't play any supporter cards from his or her hand during their next turn. So this is really cool, and I'm surprised it hasn't been done before. So what you can do with Blockade is you get your Irritating Pollen Vileplume up. They can't play items. And then you use Blockade, and they can't play supporters. So your opponent is stuck playing Pokemon, Energy, and stadiums. That's all they can do. So if they can't actually make anything happen with Pokemon, Energy, and stadiums, then you're just going to win with Blockade. Now I don't think I think eventually they'll draw into enough like basic energies to attack you. But if they're playing special energies, you're going to have Fabas as well. So this deck has a ton of Fabas to work with actually, because it plays 4 Cynthia and Caitlyn. So since these decks don't play Versus Seekers because of the Vileplume with Irritating Pollen, I really like the 4 Cynthia Caitlyn, and then the 2 Faba, Flare Grunt, Plumeria, and 3 AZ. A lot of controlling, a lot of options with the 4 Cynthia Caitlyn to get back your supporters that you need. Other than that, pretty much just the Blockade Exeggutor. I was really excited to see that being used. It's a really cool card. Haven't seen it used a lot since Zoro Eggs, really. And then, of course, Justin Bakari won the whole tournament. This is the same exact list that I showed off that Will Jenkins played. They played the same 60. So that's the top 8 of Collinsville Regionals, Black and White through Sword and Shield, 640 Masters. Shout out to LimitlessTCG.com, of course, for having all of this data and the deck lists and everything. They do a lot of great work. And that's it for the video today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. A lot of cool decks to look at in top 8. People are kind of torn on Expanded right now, so not sure how you like it, but I've always been a big fan of Expanded, or at least in recent years, I've been a big fan of Expanded. A lot of creativity, a lot of non-linear decks and non-traditional decks, but Trevnor might be an issue. We'll have to see. I think they might monitor it at Charlotte and then see from where we go from there. If it wins Charlotte again, which, I mean, it got 5th, 3rd, and 1st here. It wasn't an overwhelming amount of day 2, so I don't think it is a problem right now, but it definitely, people don't enjoy playing against it, and that's a big thing that TPCI looks at. So we'll have to see. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.